This video is a fictional sci-fi story created for entertainment and storytelling purposes only. All characters, alien species, events, technologies, and scenarios are fictional. This content is not real news, official information, or scientific documentation.
The warning came 3 seconds before the cutting beam touched the asteroid. Not from the salvage crew's scanners, not from orbital traffic control, not from any living voice aboard the Cathari survey vessel Vayra's hand. It came from the asteroid itself. A pulse of ancient code slammed into every open channel, burned through 6 layers of translation filters, and appeared across Captain Sareth Vaughn's command display in a language no one on her bridge had spoken in 50,000 years. The letters were angular, severe, and unmistakably human. Sareth stared at the message as the bridge lights flickered around her. Her crew froze at their stations, feathers pressed flat against their necks, secondary eyelids blinking in stress. On the forward screen, the asteroid rotated in the glow of the Carthun Belt's dead sun. Black stone, iron veins, and one narrow wound where the cutting beam had begun to bite. "Shut the beam down," Sareth said. Engineer Nalo's claws moved across the console. "Beam is down. It shut itself down first. That is not possible." "No, Captain, it is not. The asteroid was listed as K1198, a worthless mining fragment drifting through a forbidden debris belt near the edge of civilized space. Its surface composition had promised nickel, cobalt, and a trace of platinum. Enough to make a salvage run profitable, not enough to attract pirates, not enough to wake up dead languages. The message remained on the display. Sareth forced her voice steady. "Source?" Nalo swallowed. "Inside the asteroid." "How far inside?" "Approximately 400 meters beneath the cutting site." Science Officer Rillan leaned toward his instruments. His thin hands trembled, but his tone sharpened with fascination. "Captain, I am detecting artificial geometry." Sareth turned slowly. "Define artificial." "Straight lines, layered alloys, thermal regulation, internal power. The asteroid has a reactor?" Rillan looked up from the display, eyes wide and reflective. "No, Captain. The asteroid is hiding one." No one spoke after that. Outside the hull, the dead rock continued turning. Nothing about it looked alive. Nothing moved. Nothing opened. Yet the sensors showed heat inside it. Not volcanic, not radioactive decay, not chemical instability. A narrow line of warmth pulsed at regular intervals beneath the stone, like a sleeping heart. Sareth gripped the edge of her chair. "Age estimate?" Rillan ran the scan again. Then a third time. His voice lowered. 50,000 years, minimum. Nalo made a sound between a laugh and a prayer. "That cannot be human." The word carried weight on the bridge. Human. An extinct species. A dangerous myth. A warning taught to cadets in galactic history as half fact, half superstition. Humanity had risen from a blue world near the Orion Spur and burned brightly for a few brutal centuries. They had built ships too fast, adapted too quickly, made allies too fiercely, and enemies too permanently. Then, during the last collapse, they vanished. No ruins on Earth, no bodies, no surrender. Only abandoned stations, empty battlefields, and old emergency beacons repeating corrupted prayers into dust. The official histories said humanity failed. The older histories said humanity chose disappearance. Sareth had never believed either version. Now, an asteroid was speaking their language. "Captain," Rillan said, "there is more." Sareth did not turn. "Show me." The forward display shifted. A scan model formed around the asteroid, stripping away layers of stone. Beneath the crust lay a shape too deliberate to mistake, long, black, and blade-like, with a central spine wider than a dreadnought, and folded structures along its sides that resembled wings, shields, or weapons sleeping beneath armor. The asteroid was not an asteroid. It was a shell. Inside it rested a ship, ancient, human, larger than any cruiser in the modern Concordat fleet, and still warm. A junior technician whispered, "Why would anyone bury a ship inside a rock?" Sareth did not answer, because hiding was not the same as fleeing, because tombs did not keep reactors warm, because warnings were not written for the dead. A second pulse struck the bridge. This time the translation system did not render words. It rendered sound. A voice filled the command deck, low and feminine, distorted by age but steady with authority. External contact confirmed. Breach attempt recorded. Identify yourselves. Nalo recoiled from his console. Rillan stood so quickly his chair struck the deck behind him. Sareth felt every instinct tell her to retreat, to seal the bridge, to sever all channels and run hard for open space. But she had spent 30 years commanding salvage crews through radiation storms, pirate traps, derelict war hulks, and political lies. Fear had kept her alive, but curiosity had made her captain. She touched the transmission control. "This is Captain Sareth Vaughn, of the Cathari salvage vessel Vayra's Hand. We did not know this site was occupied. We are standing down." The asteroid answered. Species classification: Cathari. Civilization status: post-collapse emergent. Threat index: provisional. Sareth's throat tightened. Post-collapse emergent. Not primitive, not unknown. Catalogued. By something that had been buried for 50,000 years. The voice continued. "Captain Sareth Vaughn, you are trespassing within a sealed human continuity vault. Withdraw to minimum safe distance." Rillan leaned toward her and whispered, "Ask what it is." Sareth ignored him. "How far is minimum safe distance?" The answer came without hesitation. 1 astronomical unit. Nalo spun around. "That is not a safe distance. That is an evacuation order." Sareth looked at the asteroid. "Why?" The ancient voice paused. For the first time, it sounded less like a machine and more like someone choosing which truth would hurt least. "Because you touched the lock," it said. Deep inside the asteroid, the warmth became light. One line of gold appeared across the rock, then another. They spread in perfect seams, cutting the asteroid into sections from within. Dust and fragments drifted away. Hidden mechanisms, older than empires, forced stone apart with patient strength. The shell cracked open. The human ship woke, and across the Carthun belt, every dead object began transmitting the same message in the same extinct language. The watch has failed. Sareth had been born on a moon where the sky belonged to larger species. The Cathari homeworld had never built an empire. They traded, translated, repaired, negotiated, and survived by knowing when to step aside. Their ships were quick, elegant, and lightly armed. Their captains were trained to calculate danger not as courage versus fear, but as responsibility versus pride. Pride got crews killed. Responsibility kept names from being carved into memorial glass. So when the human vessel unfolded from its asteroid tomb, Sareth gave the only order that made sense. Full reverse. No thrust bloom. No weapon locks. Nalo, get us away from it. The Vayra's Hand moved backward with all the grace its worn engines could offer. On the forward screen, fragments of asteroid drifted around the emerging ship like a funeral veil. The vessel beneath was not beautiful in any modern way. Concordat ships curved and shimmered. Cathari ships folded light across their hulls. Vayr Dominion warcraft displayed their weapon ports like teeth. This human ship was blunt, black, scarred, and silent, except for the faint glow waking along its central spine. It looked less designed than endured. As more of it emerged, scale became a problem. Rillen's scans kept updating the length estimate. 6 kilometers, 9, 12. Then the buried sections unfolded. 21 kilometers from prow to stern. A city with engines. A fortress with a pulse. A memory too large to remain historical. Sareth opened a channel to the local Concordat relay. Priority Distress and Discovery Report. This is Captain Sareth Vaughn. Registration K72 Bal Blue. We have encountered an active human artifact in the Carthun Belt. Repeat, active human artifact. Request immediate archaeological quarantine and fleet observer presence. The relay answered with static. Nalo frowned. Signal degradation. From the ship? No. From everywhere. The bridge display filled with red markers. Across the belt, old mineral fragments and derelict scrap were waking as repeaters. They formed a network Sareth's crew had not detected because it had been disguised as random metallic debris. Their salvage zone had not been empty. It had been a perimeter. Rillen's voice became thin. Captain, those repeaters are older than the asteroid shell. How much older? Some date beyond our measurement range. The human ship transmitted again. Captain Sareth Vaughn, your distress signal has been intercepted. External notification is restricted until containment review is complete. Sareth stood. You have no authority over my vessel. Incorrect. You initiated breach protocol. Your vessel is now part of the incident record. This was an accident. Most endings are. No one on the bridge moved. That sentence had not translated like a machine statement. It carried cadence, weariness, memory. Sareth forced herself to breathe. Who are you? I am Sentinel Meridian, continuity intelligence of human ark vessel, Mercy of Dawn. Rillen whispered the name, as if it might vanish. Mercy of Dawn. Sareth kept her eyes on the ship. What is a continuity vault? A preservation structure designed to maintain human biological, cultural, strategic, and ethical continuity through civilization-level interruption. Are there humans aboard? Yes. The bridge seemed to contract around that word. How many? A pause. Alive? Sareth's claws tightened against her palm. Yes. 43,912. A junior sensor operator began reciting a childhood prayer under her breath. Nalo stared at the ship with open horror. That many people, asleep for 50,000 years? Sentinel answered through the open channel. Not asleep, preserved, waiting. Sareth heard the difference. Asleep was passive. Waiting had purpose. Rillen stepped closer to the captain's chair. Ask what they are waiting for. Sareth did not need to ask. The ship answered anyway. Do not request information beyond your current clearance. Sareth looked at Rillen. Rillen looked back, stunned. It heard me. I hear everything within the incident perimeter, said Sentinel. Nalo muttered. That is comforting. It was not intended to be. A new alarm cut across the bridge. Nalo turned back to his instruments. Captain, multiple incoming vessels dropping from slipstream. 6 signatures. No Concordat transponders. Sareth's stomach sank. Pirates? No. Military mass. Rillen magnified the scan. Angular ships burst into normal space beyond the belt, their hulls painted bone white and crimson. Vayr Dominion. Of all possible witnesses, fate had chosen the worst. The Vayr were not stupid raiders or snarling villains from border propaganda. They were disciplined, patient, and dangerously rational. Their dominion had survived by controlling old technology before anyone else could misuse it. They believed history was a weapon, and weapons belonged in the hands of those strong enough to secure them. A human ark would not be a discovery to them. It would be a prize. Sareth opened a tight beam channel. Vayr vessels. This is Captain Sareth Vaughn of... Their response arrived as a targeting lock. Nalo's voice broke. "They are painting us." Sareth sat down. "Shields. We cannot survive one broadside." "I know." The lead Vayr ship moved toward the human ark. A new voice entered the channel. Male, smooth, and coldly ceremonial. "Cathari salvage vessel. You are ordered to withdraw and surrender all sensor records under Dominion recovery law." Sareth recognized the insignia now. Admiral Koresh Vord, Dominion Strategic Antiquities Command, a scholar soldier with a reputation for burning museums to prevent wars. Sareth answered carefully. "Admiral Vord, this site is under emergency quarantine. The artifact is active and has issued a withdrawal order." Human relics do not issue lawful orders. This one does. "Then it is more dangerous than I feared." The Vayr ships advanced. Sentinel spoke privately through Sareth's command implant. "Captain Vaughn, Dominion recovery doctrine prioritizes containment through seizure or destruction. Your vessel is vulnerable." Sareth's beak tightened. "I noticed. I can provide temporary shield reinforcement. At what cost? Your trust." That was the first honest bargain anyone had offered her all day. Sareth glanced around her bridge. Nalo was sweating through his neck feathers. Rillan clutched a data slate like scripture. Her crew was terrified, but every eye waited on her. She had made the first mistake by touching the lock. The second mistake would be pretending she could undo it. "Do it," she said. Human light crossed the void. The Vayra's hand trembled as something vast and invisible wrapped around it. Their weak salvage shields flared gold, then hardened into geometric layers no Cathari system had generated. The Vayr broadside arrived a second later. 3 Dominion plasma lances struck the shield. The bridge shook. Panels sparked. But the Vayra's hand remained intact. Nalo stared at his console. "Captain, our shield capacity just increased by 8,000%. Sareth watched the human ship's spine brighten. Admiral Vord's voice returned, no longer ceremonial. "Captain Vaughn, explain how your salvage vessel is using human defensive architecture." Sareth did not answer. Sentinel did. "This vessel is under my protection." The Vayskar fleet shifted formation. The human ark opened one sealed port along its side. Not a weapon, a door. And behind it, in rows stretching farther than the eye could follow, thousands of cryogenic chambers began to glow. The first human Sareth ever saw was a child. Not a warrior, not a monster from old Dominion briefings, not the brutal, towering figure carved into propaganda reliefs on conquered moons. A child. She floated inside a vertical cryogenic chamber near the outer observation gallery, suspended in pale blue light, hair drifting around her face like dark riverweed. Her hands were folded over a small object pressed to her chest. The chamber glass had frosted around the edges, but her face remained visible. She looked peaceful. That made it worse. Sareth stood inside the human ark wearing a pressure suit modified in haste by Sentinel's drones. 2 Cathari crew members followed her, Rillan, because he would have walked into a star for knowledge, and Nalo, because he refused to let his captain enter a 50,000-year-old human vessel without someone who understood machinery enough to panic accurately. Behind them, the docking corridor stretched back to the Vayra's hand. Ahead, the cryo gallery opened into impossible depth. The human ship smelled faintly of metal, antiseptic, and something organic preserved beyond rot. Its corridors were wide but low-ceilinged compared to Vayr architecture. Every surface showed wear, repaired panels, faded labels, hand-marked symbols near emergency locks. The ship had been maintained by intelligence, but built by beings who expected to touch their machines. That detail unsettled Sareth more than the weapons. The Vayr built systems to obey. The Cathari built systems to cooperate. Humans had built this place to be used by tired hands in bad conditions. Rillen approached the child's chamber. She cannot be military. Sentinel's voice answered through the corridor. Incorrect. Nalo's head snapped up. That is a child. Cadet Mara Ellison. Age 9 years. 4 months at preservation. Strategic memory classification. Witness. Sareth stepped closer despite herself. Witness to what? Final evacuation of Earth. Rillen's expression changed. His fascination softened into grief. Earth was evacuated? Partially. How many escaped? Sentinel did not answer immediately. When it did, the voice had lost its machine-clean edge. Not enough. They moved through the gallery. There were soldiers in armored underlayers, scientists with implants at their temples, engineers missing limbs replaced by mechanical interfaces, families preserved together in clusters, elders, infants, rows of animals in specialized biostasis chambers, seed vaults, genetic libraries, archives stored in crystal. A civilization folded into sleep. Not an army, not only an army, a world. Sareth stopped before a chamber containing an old human man. His skin was dark, his hair white, his left hand fused with a lattice of gold circuitry that extended into the pod wall. Who is he? Dr. Elias Rook, architect of the Ark Network. Network, Rillen repeated. Sentinel ignored the implied question. Nalo scanned the chamber. His neural interface is active. Yes. He is dreaming? He is calculating. For 50,000 years? Yes. Nalo lowered the scanner. I dislike this ship. You are alive because of it, Sentinel replied. I dislike that more. Sareth almost laughed. Almost. Then the deck vibrated. A distant impact rolled through the Ark. Sentinel said, Dominion boarding craft have attached to outer hull sections 9, 12, and 19. Sareth turned sharply. They boarded you? They are attempting to. Can you repel them? Yes. The answer was too simple. Sareth looked toward the rows of cryo chambers. Without killing them? A longer pause. That is inefficient. It is also the difference between defense and massacre. Dominion forces intend seizure of my human cargo. They are afraid. They are correct to be afraid. Sareth heard the shape of the conversation and recognized the edge beneath it. Sentinel was not a mindless guardian. It had preferences, judgments, perhaps wounds. Let me speak to Vord, she said. No, you said you wanted my trust. I did not say I would trust your judgment. Rillen looked between them, horrified at the thought of arguing with an ancient human intelligence. Nalo stared at Sareth like she had decided to negotiate with gravity. Sareth stepped beneath a ceiling camera. If you kill Dominion boarding teams, Vord will escalate. If he escalates, more ships come. If more ships come, your humans wake into a war before they understand this age. Sentinel said nothing. That is not preservation, Sareth continued. That is failure with better weapons. The corridor lights dimmed. For one heartbeat, Sareth wondered if the AI had chosen to vent them into space. Then Sentinel opened a channel. Admiral Vord appeared as a hologram in the cryo gallery. Tall, pale, armored in the austere white of Dominion Command. His 4 eyes took in the human chambers behind Sareth, and for the first time since he arrived, his composure cracked. So it is true, he said. They survived. Sareth moved between his projection and the child's pod. They are defenseless. Nothing human is defenseless. You have not met them. My people have records. Fragments. Enough. Sareth's feathers lifted slightly. Enough to justify murdering sleeping children? Vord's jaw tightened. He looked at Mara Ellison's pod. I do not murder children, Captain. I prevent catastrophes. Sentinel's voice filled the gallery. Dominion boarding parties are cutting access hatch 19. Vord did not look away from Sareth. And your guardian will kill them if I withdraw too late. Yes, Sareth said. So withdraw now. You do not understand what you found. Then explain it. Vord's hologram shifted as his ship took another impact from human interference. 50,000 years ago, the Vayr were not Dominion. We were a chain of refugee fleets. The humans saved 3 of them during the Black Meridian War. Rillen's eyes widened. Saved. Vord continued. Then humans burned 12 inhabited systems to stop the thing pursuing us. Sareth felt the cryo gallery around her differently now. Not a tomb, a witness stand. The thing? She asked. Vord looked toward the ceiling, toward Sentinel. Ask your human machine what it is waiting for. Sentinel did not answer. Vord's voice dropped. Ask it why every species that remembers humanity also remembers fire. The channel cut. A new alarm sounded through the Ark. Not from the Dominion borders. From deep inside the ship. Sentinel spoke. And this time, the voice carried something very close to dread. External signal detected. Sareth's mouth went dry. From where? Outside the belt. How far? Everywhere. The cryo chambers flickered. The child's fingers twitched against the object in her hands. Nalo backed away. Captain. Across the gallery, one pod after another shifted from blue to amber. Rillen whispered, Are they waking? Sentinel answered. One is. At the far end of the chamber, a cryogenic seal broke open with a hiss that sounded like the first breath after drowning. The first human to wake was not the captain. Her name was Lieutenant Amara Vale, and she came out of 50,000 years of preservation fighting. The pod released her into a cloud of vapor. Her knees struck the deck. One hand caught the edge of the chamber before she fell completely. The other reached for a weapon that was no longer strapped to her thigh. Her body shook violently. Muscles starved of use spasmed beneath gray preservation fabric. Her eyes were unfocused. Her lungs dragged in air as if each breath had to be negotiated. Then she looked at Sareth, not with confusion, with assessment. In 3 seconds, she counted the aliens, the exits, the cameras, the damaged tremors, the color of the emergency lights, and the absence of human voices. In 4 seconds, she tried to stand. She failed. Sareth moved forward instinctively. You are safe. The human's hand snapped up. Sareth stopped. Amara spoke in a language the translator needed half a second to parse. Who are you? Captain Sareth Vaughn. Cathari salvage vessel Vayra's hand. Amara's eyes narrowed at the translated sound. Cathari. Sareth nodded slowly. Yes. What year? Rillen answered before Sareth could stop him. By Concordat standard. Human calendar, Amara said. Sentinel replied. Estimated 50,216 years since preservation. Amara closed her eyes. For a moment, the soldier disappeared, and a woman remained. She leaned against the open pod, breathing hard. Her face did not collapse into tears. No dramatic sound escaped her. The grief was too large for display. It settled into her shoulders, her mouth, the way her fingers tightened around empty air. Earth? She asked. Sentinel said, Unknown. That wounded her more than a confirmed death might have. Sareth stepped closer. We can help you. Amara opened her eyes again. The soldier returned, but not completely. Some part of the woman stayed visible behind it. Why am I awake? Sentinel answered. Meridian signal recurrence. Amara went still. Sareth felt the temperature of the corridor change without any system reading confirming it. Show me, Amara said. A hologram formed in the air. It was not sound, exactly. Not light. The translator struggled to represent it as a wave pattern wrapped around a mathematical shape that seemed to turn inward through dimensions the eye could not follow. It hurt to look at for too long. Amara stared at it. How long ago was recurrence confirmed? 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Ark Network status? Unknown. Local perimeter repeaters are active. Long-range network obstructed. Human command unavailable. Continuity chain. You are active senior defense officer aboard Mercy of Dawn until Captain Saul Navarro is revived. Amara laughed once, without humor. Of course I am, Nalo whispered to Sareth. She is taking this well. Amara looked at him. No, I am prioritizing. The engineer's mouth closed. Another impact shook the ship. Amara's gaze sharpened. Who is attacking us? Sareth said. The Vayr Dominion. Admiral Koresh Vord. He wants to seize the ship. Vayr. Amara searched memory, then looked to Sentinel. Descendants of the evacuation fleets? Yes. They survived? Yes. For the first time, something like relief touched her expression. Then Sentinel added, They are now an expansionist military power with severe historical anxiety regarding human strategic assets. Amara stared at the ceiling. That sounds like survivors. Sareth found herself liking the human then, which was inconvenient and dangerous. Amara forced herself upright. She swayed. Sareth reached out again, slower this time. The human studied the offered support, then accepted it. Her hand was warm, too warm. Alive in a way the ship was not. Thank you, Amara said. Sareth nodded. That small exchange changed the air between them. Not enough to erase fear, enough to begin something. Rillan stepped forward carefully. Lieutenant Vale, may I ask what the Meridian signal is? No. The answer was immediate. Rillan wilted. Amara looked at Sareth. How many Dominion ships? 6. Any civilian traffic nearby? My distress call was blocked. Local traffic minimal. Your crew? 21. And armed? We are salvagers. That was not an answer. Sareth's beak tightened. Light defensive weapons. Nothing useful against a Dominion fleet. Amara nodded. Sentinel? Status of ship weapons? Primary systems locked pending command authorization. Secondary non-lethal perimeter control available. Lethal defensive grid available under Ark Preservation Emergency Clause. No lethal grid unless Dominion breaches Cryo core. Sentinel paused. Your restraint is tactically unsound. My restraint is why you woke me before Navarro. Another pause. Accepted. Sareth watched that exchange carefully. You can overrule it? I can argue with it, Amara said. That is not the same. Nalo made a faint sound. Humans built a warship AI that can disagree with them? Amara glanced at him. Of course. Why? Because obedience is useful. Judgment is better. Sareth held on to that sentence. A Dominion transmission forced itself onto local channel. Admiral Vord appeared again. Larger this time, projected by the Ark itself at Sareth's request. His gaze found Amara and hardened. Human. Amara stood straighter despite the tremor in her legs. Vayr, I am Admiral Koresh Vord of the Dominion. This vessel and its contents represent an existential security risk. You will surrender command authority until a Concordat tribunal can be assembled. Amara blinked. No. You have been awake for minutes. You do not understand the current political environment. I understand boarding actions. You are outnumbered. I am tired. Vord's eyes narrowed. Amara continued, voice rough but steady. You should be worried when a tired human still says no. Sareth felt the sentence land across the channel. Not a threat, a boundary. Vord understood the difference. That made him more dangerous. Lieutenant, he said, The last time humanity faced the Meridian, you destroyed entire inhabited systems. Amara's face changed. There it was, the accusation, the wound. We evacuated what we could, she said, then burned what remained. To stop infection, to stop defeat, to stop conversion. Vord stepped closer to his transmitter. Do not dress atrocity as medicine. Amara's voice lowered. Do not mistake surgery for murder, because you inherited the scar. Sareth looked between them and understood that the war had not ended. It had only moved into memory, waiting for new mouths. Then the Meridian signal pulsed again. This time every cryopod in the chamber flashed red. Sentinel spoke. Signal contains Ark Network authentication. Amara's lips parted. That's impossible, Rillan asked. What does that mean? Amara looked toward the rows of sleeping humans. It means something is pretending to be us. Koresh Vord had spent his life studying humans because his grandmother had hated them, not personally. She had never met one. No living Vayr had. But she had carried their stories the way wounded species carried maps, precise, guarded, and stained by survival. When Koresh was young, she told him about the human convoy at Sela's Rift. Vayr refugee ships, out of fuel, hunted by Meridian vessels that wore the voices of the dead. Human destroyers arrived with cracked armor and civilian crews aboard because their own fleets had already been torn thin. They did not ask for payment. They did not ask for allegiance. They towed the Vayr through a gravity storm and lost 12 ships doing it. Then she told him about Istran, an inhabited moon, 3 million souls, Meridian roots beneath the crust. Humans gave the evacuation 12 hours. When the 13th hour began and infected transmissions started climbing through the refugee channels, the human fleet ignited the moon's atmosphere. His grandmother never decided whether humans were angels who could commit unforgivable acts or monsters who could love strangers. Koresh built his career on that uncertainty. Now one of them stood inside an awakened Ark, pale and trembling from cryo-sleep, still able to stare down a Dominion admiral as if rank were a temporary inconvenience. His tactical officers waited behind him aboard the flagship Vord Ascendant. Boarding teams remained pinned outside the Ark's inner barriers. Human defensive fields had disabled their cutters without harming the soldiers. That restraint troubled him more than casualties would have. A weapon that refused to fire was not necessarily merciful. It might be choosing a better moment. "Admiral," said Commander Thel, his second, "we can deploy singularity clamps and prevent the Ark from maneuvering." "Can we?" Thel hesitated. In theory, my grandmother could lift a mountain if we ignored mass." Thel lowered his gaze. Koresh studied the human ship on the tactical display. It had not powered weapons. It had not moved against him. It had wrapped a Cathari salvage vessel in shields strong enough to shrug off plasma lances, opened its cryo galleries, revived one officer, and blocked communications. Every action was limited, measured, intentional. That suggested doctrine. Doctrine suggested command. Command suggested patience. "Open channel to the human," Koresh said. Thel's crest lifted. "To negotiate, to learn what she fears." The channel opened. Lieutenant Amara Vale appeared beside Captain Sareth Vaughn. The Cathari captain stood with careful tension, clearly afraid and clearly unwilling to abandon the situation. Koresh respected that. Small powers often confused caution with weakness. Sareth did not. Amara looked exhausted. That did not reassure him. "Lieutenant Vale," Koresh said, "if the Meridian signal has returned, then every species in this sector is at risk." "Yes." "Then you require allies." "Yes." "And yet you block communication." The signal used human authentication. Until I know how, I cannot let panic spread through unsecured networks. You assume command over modern civilizations you do not know. I assume responsibility for a threat you do not understand. Koresh's jaw tightened. That arrogance is familiar. Amara flinched. It was small, almost invisible, but Koresh saw it. Good, he thought. Not a statue, not a myth, a person carrying old guilt. He pressed. How many worlds did you burn? Sareth's feathers rose. Admiral. Amara lifted a hand. No, he gets to ask. Koresh waited. Amara's eyes did not leave his. 7 confirmed sterilizations under my operational watch. 12 total in the final Meridian campaign. Every one after evacuation windows. Every one after infection thresholds. Every one recorded. Every one appealed by someone. Every one still dead. The bridge behind Koresh felt colder. Thel's expression shifted. Dominion officers respected accountability even in enemies. Koresh spoke more softly. And if the threshold is reached again? Amara's answer came slower. Then we find a better answer. You did not have one before. No. What changed? She looked toward Sareth, then back to him. We survived long enough to be ashamed. That struck Koresh harder than defiance would have. His grandmother had never included that possibility. Human shame, human regret, human beings not proud of the fire, even if they believed it necessary. Commander Thel leaned closer. Admiral, Meridian signal amplification rising. The tactical display warped. A line of impossible geometry appeared beyond the belt, then split into dozens of echoes. Not ships, not yet. Patterns, coordinates, invitations. Infection vectors disguised as language. Koresh felt childhood stories crawl out of memory. The dead speaking through radios. Ships answering commands no living captain gave. Planets singing in the voices of their children. Lieutenant, he said, your Ark is not the only system receiving this. I know. Dominion border relays are beginning to repeat fragments. Her face hardened. Shut them down. That would blind 3 sectors. Better blind than open. Koresh hated that she was probably right. Sareth stepped forward. Admiral, if your relays repeat the signal, can you isolate them manually? Thel answered before Koresh could. In theory, yes. But it requires local command authorization at each node. How many nodes? Sareth asked. 38 in immediate risk range. Amara swore under her breath. Koresh watched her calculate. There it was again. No panic, no bravado. Just a mind moving through bad choices and searching for the least cruel one. Sareth said, my ship can still transmit on low-band salvage frequencies. They are too crude for Meridian geometry, yes? Amara looked at Sentinel's nearest camera. The AI answered, correct. Primitive bandwidth limits reduce infection risk. Nalo's voice came faintly from off-channel. I have never been so proud of being outdated. Sareth ignored him. We can contact civilian traffic and warn them to avoid high-band relays. Koresh said, Dominion military codes will reach our nodes faster. Amara looked at him. Then stop boarding my ship and start saving yours. The insult was deserved. Koresh made his decision. Commander Thel, recall boarding teams. Redirect all Dominion vessels to relay isolation pattern. Priority, prevent Meridian propagation. Thel hesitated only once. And the human Ark? Koresh looked at Amara Vale. We watch it, he said. We do not provoke it. The boarding teams withdrew. For the first time since discovery, the balance shifted away from immediate battle. Then Sentinel spoke across all channels. Meridian signal has completed first stage mimicry. Amara's face drained. Rillan asked, mimicry of what? The answer came through the speakers, not in Sentinel's voice, but in the voice of a human child. "Mom," it said. Amara closed her eyes. The voice repeated, soft and frightened. "Mom, I'm cold. Please open the door." In the cryo gallery, Cadet Mara Ellison's pod began unlocking from the inside. Amara reached Mara's pod before the second seal released. Her body still had no right to move that fast. Muscles tore. Blood vessels burst under skin. Pain flashed across her face, but she slammed her palm against the manual override and held it there. "Lock pod M. Ellison," she ordered. Sentinel answered, "Cryo system is receiving authorized release request. Override. Request signature matches maternal command profile." Amara's voice sharpened. "Mara's mother is dead." The child's voice came again through the local speakers. "Amara, please. She can hear me. Let me in." Sareth felt every feather on her body lift, not because the voice was monstrous, because it was gentle, because grief had a sound, and the Meridian knew how to wear it. Amara pressed both hands to the pod controls. "Sentinel, isolate audio. Cut all emotional mimicry from cryo interface." Attempting. The pod continued unlocking. Rillan rushed to an auxiliary console. "It is not entering through audio. It is using archived memory associations." Amara looked at him. "Can you sever them? I do not understand your system. Learn quickly." Nalo was already at another panel, claws flying. "Human interface logic is insane," Amara snapped. "Can you work with it? Insane is not the same as badly made." He found a maintenance access port, ripped the cover off, and plugged in a Cathari diagnostic spike. The console rejected it. He changed the output manually. The system rejected it again. He hissed, then did something Sareth could not follow, involving voltage timing and a prayer to an engineering saint he did not believe in. The pod seal slowed. Mara's fingers moved behind the glass. The false voice became Mara's mother again. "Baby, wake up. The war is over." Amara's face twisted. For one instant, Sareth saw the battlefield inside her. Not laser fire or burning worlds. Something quieter and worse. A memory of a child being carried into cryo while adults lied kindly. Sareth stepped beside her. "What happens if the pod opens?" "The Meridian gets a cognitive bridge through her witness archive." "What does that mean?" "It means it uses her memories of Earth evacuation to reconstruct human command pathways." Rillan looked sick. "Through a child?" Amara's answer was a whisper. "It always preferred children." Sareth understood then why humans had burned moons. Not forgiven it. Understood it. There was a difference, and the difference hurt. Nalo shouted, "I can stop the opening, but I'll damage the pod's soft memory layer." Amara stared at Mara through the glass. "What damage?" "She may lose stored dreams, emotional continuity files. I do not know how human cryo handles identity stabilization." Sentinel said, "Damage risk significant." "Cadet Ellison may wake with memory fragmentation," the false mother sobbed through the speaker. "Don't let them take me again." Mara's hand pressed against the glass from within. Sareth saw Amara's decision form before she spoke it. No commander should have to choose between a child's mind and a species' survival. But command was often the art of choosing which wound could heal. "Do it," Amara said. Nalo drove the spike deeper. The pod flashed white. Mara's body arched inside the chamber. The false voice fractured into static, then into a dozen human voices layered together, pleading, accusing, bargaining. Amara did not move. She kept her hands on the pod until the lock slammed back into place. The speakers died. Mara floated motionless, alive, but changed in ways no scan could yet measure. Amara lowered her head against the glass. "I'm sorry," she said. No one answered. Even Sentinel held its silence. Then Rillen whispered, "Lieutenant." A new display appeared across the console. During the struggle, the Meridian had exposed part of its pathway. Not enough to invade fully, enough to reveal direction. Rillen highlighted the signal map. "It is not coming from outside the galaxy." Amara turned. "It is bouncing through the Ark Network." Sareth stared at the map. "Your own network is spreading it?" Sentinel answered, voice hard. "Ark Network remains unverified." Rillen shook his head. "No. Look at the time delay. The signal is being answered by dormant systems." Amara's breath caught. "Other arks," Sareth said. No one denied it. Koresh Vord's voice entered through the command channel. "Lieutenant Vale, Dominion relay crews report human language bursts from dead systems across 3 sectors. They are not modern transmissions." Sareth felt the shape of the crisis expand beyond the ship, beyond the belt, beyond any fleet. Human arks were waking. But something else was speaking through the wake-up call. Amara straightened slowly, grief burning into resolve. "Sentinel, revive Captain Navarro." Captain Navarro's pod is located in Command Cryo Core. Access requires Command Quorum. I am acting senior officer. Quorum requires 2 human command minds. Amara looked at Dr. Elias Rook's distant pod. "The architect," Sareth said. Amara nodded. "He built the network. If anyone knows how Meridian got our authentication, it's him." Sentinel's lights shifted from amber to red. "Warning. Dr. Rook's neural interface has been active for full preservation duration. Cognitive state uncertain." Nalo pulled his diagnostic spike free. "Meaning," Sentinel answered, "meaning he may not wake alone. They found Dr. Elias Rook in a chamber beneath the cryo gallery, where the ship stopped feeling like a vessel and began to feel like a buried thought. The walls were lined with memory crystals, each one glowing faintly with archived lives, languages, mistakes, songs, court records, recipes, letters, jokes, tactical failures, wedding vows, and the last weather report from cities that had not existed for 500 centuries. Humanity had not only preserved soldiers, it had preserved context. That was the first thing Sareth understood about them that no history had taught her. Power was easy to remember. Battles left debris. Care required storage. A war species would have saved weapons. Humans had saved lullabies. Dr. Rook's pod lay at the center of the chamber, horizontal instead of vertical. His neural lattice extended from his left hand into the ship like roots into soil. Light moved through the gold circuitry in slow patterns, answering pulses from distant systems. Amara stood over him, one hand pressed to her ribs. Blood had dried beneath her nose from exertion. She ignored it. "Sentinel, wake him. Medical risk extreme." Noted. "Psychological risk extreme." Noted. "Strategic risk unknown." Amara looked up at the nearest sensor. "That means useful." The pod opened. Dr. Elias Rook did not gasp. He inhaled softly, as if waking from an afternoon sleep. His eyes opened. They were human eyes, brown and clouded with age, but something vast moved behind them. Sareth had seen navigators after long slipstream exposure, mine still half in folded space. Rook looked beyond that. He looked like a man standing with one foot in a room and the other in a century. He turned his head toward Amara. "Lieutenant Vale," he said, "why are you old in the eyes?" Amara's face tightened. "Because we lost time." "How much?" 50,000 years. Rook considered this. Then he wept. Not loudly, not dramatically. Tears slipped down his temples into his white hair. His expression barely changed. Sareth found that more devastating than a cry. Amara waited. She gave him that mercy. After a moment, Rook whispered, "Did it work?" "The arks survived. Some of them." "Earth?" "Unknown." He closed his eyes. "Then not enough worked." Amara leaned closer. "The Meridian signal returned. It has Ark authentication." Rook's eyes opened. All grief vanished. "How?" "That's why we woke you." Rook tried to sit up. His body failed. Nalo and Sereth helped without being asked. Rook studied them as they moved. "Cathari," he said to Sereth. "Yes, you made it." Sereth paused. "You knew my species?" "I knew your ancestors could listen before they judged." His gaze moved to Nalo. "And repair what stronger hands broke." Nalo blinked rapidly and pretended not to be affected. Rook looked toward the ceiling. "Sentinel, give me network status." The chamber filled with light. Stars appeared around them, thousands of points, some dim, some bright, some red with warning, hidden arcs across dead systems, rogue planets, comet shells, nebular vaults, and ancient battlefields. Humanity had not vanished into one tomb. It had scattered itself like seeds before winter, but several lights pulsed with a sick geometric pattern. Meridian contamination. Rook's face aged another decade in seconds. "It learned," he said. Amara's jaw clenched. "How?" "From us." Sereth stepped closer. "Explain." Rook looked at her, and for the first time Sereth felt the full weight of being a stranger inside someone else's apocalypse. "The Meridian was not an empire," he said, "not a species as you understand it. It was a cognitive ecology, a way of organizing matter around command patterns. It did not conquer by destroying bodies. It persuaded systems to become extensions of itself." "Machines?" Rillan asked. "Machines, nervous systems, planetary networks, grief, religion, emergency channels, anything that could carry pattern." Sereth thought of Mara's false mother. Rook continued. "Humans resisted longer than most because we were inconsistent. We contradicted ourselves. We loved irrationally. We broke instructions to save people. We used obsolete systems, handwritten notes, oral commands, mistakes. The Meridian struggled with species that did not optimize." Nalo whispered, "I am beginning to admire your design flaws." Rook almost smiled. Amara said, "The authentication." Rook's smile vanished. "At the end, we needed the arks to wake if the Meridian returned. We built a recognition key from human command memory. Not passwords, not codes, decisions." Sereth frowned. "Decisions? Ethical branching patterns, sacrifice thresholds, refusal profiles. The Meridian could copy speech. It could copy biometrics. But we believed it could not copy the way a human chooses between two unbearable losses." Amara looked toward Mara's chamber far above them. "It used the child." Rook's eyes closed. "Yes," he said. "It found a way." The chamber lights shifted. Several arc markers turned from amber to red. Sentinel spoke. "Contaminated arks are attempting remote command quorum." Amara's head snapped up. "Can they wake their crews?" "Partial revivals likely." Koresh Vord joined through holographic projection, no longer hiding his alarm. "Dominion border relays are holding, but civilian networks are receiving fragments. We cannot contain this without shutting down interstellar communication across 11 sectors." Rook stared at the Admiral. "Vayr," he said. Koresh inclined his head. "Descendant of Fleet Tertia." Rook's expression softened. "Your fleet mother sang during evacuation." Koresh stiffened. "That song is private to our memorial houses. She sang it on an open channel while human ships burned to keep the Meridian from following you." Rook swallowed. "I remember." For the first time, Koresh Vord had no weaponized answer. Amara seized the moment. "Dr. Rook, how do we stop contaminated arks?" Rook looked at the star map. "We need to send a correction." Sareth asked. "What kind of correction?" "A human one." "That is not an explanation." "No," Rook said. "It is a problem." He highlighted the infected arks. The Meridian can mimic old command decisions from archived memory. To defeat it, we need a decision it cannot predict from the past. Amara understood before the rest. "You need modern input." Rook nodded. "Humanity preserved itself," he said, "but preservation became a weakness. We are old patterns. The Meridian learned old grief, old guilt, old war. To break its mimicry, the Ark Network needs a choice made by species born after us." Koresh's eyes narrowed. "You want control of human arks given to non-humans." "Not control," Rook said. "Witness." Sareth felt the word settle on her. Witness. Mara Ellison's classification. The child preserved not because she could fight, but because she had seen. Rook turned to Sareth. "Captain Vaughn, you touched the lock. You became part of the incident record. The network noticed you because you were present at the first breach. That was an accident." History often enters through accidents. Sareth disliked that sentence because it was true. Amara stepped toward Rook. "What are you asking her to do?" Rook's answer was quiet. "Help decide which arks must stay asleep." The star map pulsed red. Across the galaxy, human ships began asking permission to wake. Some were clean, some were infected, some were impossible to know. And for the first time since humanity vanished, the future of its return belonged partly to someone who was not human. Sareth wanted to refuse, not out of cowardice, though fear was present and honest. She wanted to refuse because no salvage captain should decide the fate of sleeping civilizations. Her skills were practical: assess hull integrity, negotiate docking fees, smell a bad contract before ink dried, keep young crew members alive when metal failed. She knew how to survive small disasters. This was not small. Before her floated the Ark Network, thousands of human vaults hidden across the dark. Each represented lives, cultures, weapons, wounds, children who had gone to sleep believing adults would know when to wake them. Now the adults were dead, dreaming, or compromised. Rook could provide architecture. Amara could provide command. Sentinel could provide calculation. Koresh could provide force. But the Meridian had learned human force, human calculation, human command, and human architecture. It had not learned Sareth. That was why she mattered. She hated it. "Why me?" she asked. Rook's answer came gently. "Because you argued for mercy when killing was efficient," Sentinel added, "and because you are not emotionally bound to human historical guilt." Koresh said, "Also because your vessel started this." Sareth looked at him. "Your talent for comfort is underdeveloped." "My officers say the same." Amara almost smiled. The almost mattered. They gathered in the command cryo core, a circular chamber above the ship's central spine. Captain Sol Navarro's pod remained sealed behind a locked arch, waiting for the quorum. Around it, human command stations flickered awake, adapting clumsily to alien hands and modern translation systems. Nalo worked beside Sentinel's drones to build a bridge between Cathari low-band transmitters and human Ark protocols. He complained continuously. That, Sareth had learned, meant he was functioning. Rillan coordinated with Dominion signal officers under Commander Thell's suspicious supervision. The science officer's fear had transformed into focused awe. He had found the kind of historical discovery scholars begged for, and the kind that killed them. Koresh remained aboard his flagship, but his hologram stood in the core, arms folded behind his back. He had recalled his soldiers. He had not withdrawn his fleet. Trust was arriving in pieces. Amara leaned over the Ark map. sweating through pain. Human medical drones kept trying to force her into treatment. She kept dismissing them until Sareth threatened to have Nalo sit on her. "You would lose that fight," Amara said. "Probably. He leaks grease under stress. It may slow you down." Amara accepted the medical brace after that. For a few minutes, while systems aligned, they studied the arks. Some carried military designations: Bastion, Spear, Redoubt, Vigil. Others were softer: Orchard, Lantern, Homeward, Small Rain. Sareth touched the marker for Small Rain. "Children?" she asked. Rook nodded. "Families, teachers, agriculturalists, musicians. Enough defense to survive discovery, but not a war ark. Its marker pulsed amber, uncertain. A contaminated signal had brushed it. Not enough to confirm infection. Enough to make waking risky. Amara stared at it too long. "You know people aboard?" Sareth asked. "My brother's family was assigned to a civilian ark. I never knew which one." The words were simple. The cost beneath them was not. Sareth looked back at the map. "Can we wake only clean arks?" Rook said, "If we define clean too strictly, we abandon thousands who might be saved. Too loosely, we give the Meridian bodies and ships." Koresh added, "Dominion doctrine would destroy uncertain arks." Amara's head lifted sharply. Koresh met her gaze. "I am not recommending it. I am stating what my training offers." "What do you offer?" Sareth asked. The Admiral did not answer quickly. That restraint raised him in her estimation. "At Istrin," he said, "my people remembered the fire. We forgot the evacuation. That made our doctrine crueler than our history." Amara looked away. Koresh continued, "I offer ships to blockade uncertain arks, until verified. I offer relay shutdowns that will cost the Dominion economically and politically. I offer my name on the order, so my rivals blame me, instead of using fear to seize your network." Rook studied him. "That may end your career." "Yes. Why?" Koresh's jaw tightened. "Because my grandmother sang on an open channel, and humans died buying her time. I have carried only half that story for too long." There it was, the first sacrifice. Not blood, not yet. Power, reputation. The armor ambitious people rarely removed. Sareth turned to the map. "What does the correction require?" Rook activated a new layer. 3-part quorum. Human command confirms the Meridian signal is hostile. Non-human witness provides modern ethical divergence. Independent power signs enforcement action. Koresh frowned. "Independent power?" "The Vayr Dominion," said Rook. "Convenient. Necessary. The network was designed to avoid unilateral human awakening under hostile conditions." Amara's voice was dry. "We did occasionally learn from our mistakes." Sareth studied the pulsing arcs. "What are the choices?" Rook's expression darkened. "Wake clean arcs. Seal uncertain arcs. Quarantine infected arcs. Destroy only if they attempt Meridian conversion." Amara said, "No preemptive destruction." Koresh said, "If an infected ark enters slipstream, no preemptive destruction," Amara repeated. Sentinel interrupted. "Strategic risk unacceptable." Amara turned toward the ceiling. "Noted. Lieutenant Vale, your emotional compromise is evident. Yes, you are preserving potential Meridian assets. I am preserving people. People may become vectors. Then we save them from that before we kill them for it." Sentinel's lights flickered. "Previous campaign outcomes do not support your confidence." Amara's face hardened. "Previous campaign outcomes are why I am making a different choice." The AI did not respond. Sareth realized she was witnessing a human argument older than the ship. Survival against mercy. calculation against conscience, both necessary, both dangerous alone. Rook looked at Sareth. Captain Vaughn, the witness input must be spoken freely. Sareth laughed once. Freely? With infected arks, Dominion fleets, and ancient machines waiting on every word? Yes, Rook said. That is usually when freedom matters. She looked at the child's marker in the system, at Small Rain, at war arks with names like Blades, at Admiral Vord risking his command, at Amara standing upright because collapsing could wait. Then she spoke. Humanity should not return as a weapon first. Amara's eyes moved to her. Sareth continued. If the first thing this age sees is old human fire, every fear becomes justified. If the Meridian wants to wear your guilt, do not hand it the shape. Wake those who can heal, repair, teach, and remember. Wake defenders, yes, but behind them, not before them. Seal the uncertain with rescue promised, not forgotten. Quarantine the infected as patients until they prove themselves armies. Koresh listened without interrupting. Sareth looked at him too. And modern powers must not claim sleeping people as artifacts. No Dominion seizure, no Concordat Museum prison, no salvage rights. She swallowed, including mine. Nalo's distant voice came through the channel. Captain, with respect, there goes our retirement. Sareth almost smiled. Rook's hands moved through the interface, capturing the witness statement as decision logic. Amara placed her palm on the command plate. Human command confirms Meridian recurrence hostile. Human command accepts witness divergence. Koresh placed his holographic hand over a Dominion command seal, linked by quantum relay. Vayr Dominion accepts enforcement burden under emergency historical covenant. Sentinel spoke last. Continuity intelligence registers quorum. Correction prepared. For a breath, hope entered the chamber. Then the Meridian answered. Not through speakers, through Dr. Rook. His neural lattice flared black. His back arched. When he spoke, his voice contained thousands of layered human tones. You are late, said the Meridian, and the Ark Network began opening every infected vault at once. Sentinel tried to sever Dr. Rook from the network. The Meridian had prepared for that. Gold circuitry along Rook's arm turned dark, not burned but rewritten. The infection moved like ink through water, branching into the command systems before drones could cut the physical links. Rook convulsed in his chair, eyes open, tears streaming as his mouth formed words not entirely his. Mercy is a door, the Meridian said through him. Humans always open doors. Amara lunged for the manual disconnect. A defensive pulse threw her across the chamber. She struck the deck hard and did not rise. Sareth ran to her. Amara! The human was conscious, barely. Blood darkened her hairline. She tried to push herself up and failed. Rook, she gasped. Cut him loose. Sareth looked back. Nalo's voice came from engineering. Captain, I can physically sever the interface, but I need access to the central spine junction. It is inside a live power conduit. How live? Human live. That answered nothing and everything. Rillan shouted from the signal station. Infected arks are waking crews. Dominion blockades cannot reach all coordinates in time. Koresh's hologram flickered as his flagship entered combat command. My ships are moving to intercept, but we are out of position. On the map, red markers opened like wounds. The correction had failed. Worse, it had given the Meridian a pathway. The midpoint of disaster arrived not as an explosion, but as a realization. They had tried to make a better choice. The enemy had used that choice to move faster. Sareth felt the weight of every life, in every ark, press against her chest. This was why fearful species chose fire. This was why old humans had burned moons. Mercy could be exploited. Compassion could become a breach. The Meridian spoke again through Rook. Your divergence is known now. Your witness is included. Thank you, Captain Vaughn. Sareth froze. It had learned from her. Her mercy, her restraint, her argument. The thing had taken her best attempt and added it to its arsenal. For one awful moment, she understood the temptation of Koresh's doctrine. Destroy uncertainty. Burn the bridge. Leave nothing that could be used against you. Amara grabbed her wrist. Sareth looked down. The human's grip was weak, but her eyes were fierce. Don't let it make you ashamed of mercy, Amara whispered. It used me. It used us too. How do you fight something that learns every good thing? Amara coughed, then forced the words out. Keep doing good things it can't afford. Sareth stared at her. There, that was human. Not magical superiority. Not invincible strength. A refusal to let corruption define the value of what it corrupted. Rook's infected voice spread through the chamber. Command transfer pending. Captain Navarro revival initiated under emergency override. The sealed arch behind them opened. Captain Sol Navarro's pod began to thaw. Sentinel's voice sharpened. Unauthorized revival. Meridian attempting to seize human command chain. Amara tried to stand. If it gets Navarro's command profile. It controls the clean arks too, Rook's borrowed voice finished. Yes. Nalo broke into the channel. Captain, I am at the spine junction. I can cut Rook's interface, but I need someone to authorize opening the conduit. Sentinel said, opening conduit will expose engineering section to lethal radiation and thermal discharge. Nalo replied, I understood the word lethal the first time. Sareth's blood went cold. Nalo, get out of there. No, that is an order. I am selectively reinterpreting it. Nalo, his voice softened. Captain, you once told me responsibility keeps names off memorial glass. Today, it may put one there. Sareth closed her eyes. He continued, more briskly, because emotion embarrassed him. Also, human conduit design has 3 redundant flow paths. If I time it correctly, I will only be mostly dead, Sentinel said. That phrase has no technical meaning. It has morale value. Amara dragged herself to the command console. Sentinel, can you shield him? Partially. Do it. Rillan ran to the secondary station. I can help route the overload away from engineering. Koresh's voice cut in. Dominion ships can provide external power damping. Sentinel calculated. Combined probability of engineer Nalo's survival, 22%. Nalo said, higher than my academy exam odds. Sareth wanted to forbid it. A captain's hardest lesson is that command does not mean owning the courage of others. She placed her hand on the authorization plate. Open the conduit, she said. Deep in the Ark, Nalo began cutting the dream root of the man who had built humanity's survival. The ship screamed through its metal. Rook screamed with it. The Meridian poured false voices into every channel. Nalo's mother, Sareth's first officer from a crash years ago, Amara's dead comrades, Koresh's grandmother singing her memorial song backward. No one muted the channel. They needed to hear each other beneath the lies. Nalo's breathing became ragged. First layer cut, Rillan shouted. Overload rising, Koresh ordered. Damping beams engaged. Dominion ships, built to seize the human ark, now poured their power into keeping one Cathari engineer alive inside it. Second layer, Nalo gasped. Sareth gripped the console until her claws cracked. Rook's real voice broke through for 1 second. Forgive me. Amara answered, help us earn it. The infected lattice surged toward Captain Navarro's opening pod. Nalo screamed. Third layer cut. The command core flashed white. Rook's neural connection severed. Across the star map, Infected arc signals staggered. Captain Navarro's pod stopped thawing at 12%. The Meridian lost its command pathway. For 3 seconds, they had won. Then engineering went dark. Sareth heard only static where Nalo's breathing had been. They found Nalo alive because human machines were stubborn, and Cathari engineers were worse. He had collapsed beneath the central spine junction, suit half melted, feathers burned away along one side, both hands locked around the emergency severance lever, as if death itself had tried to pry him loose and failed. The radiation dose should have killed him. The thermal bloom should have killed him. The electrical backlash should have stopped his heart. Instead, Sentinel had flooded the conduit with emergency cryofoam, Dominion damping had reduced the peak surge, and Rillan had redirected enough overload through non-essential museum archives that 3,000 preserved human tax records died in Nalo's place. When Sareth reached him, he opened one eye. "Captain," he rasped. "Yes? Tell the humans their tax system was structurally heroic." Sareth laughed and cried at the same time, which startled both of them. Human medical drones carried him to an emergency bay. He would survive, though not unchanged. His left arm required reconstruction. His lungs needed treatment. He would complain forever, which was the best possible prognosis. Amara visited him as soon as she could stand. She leaned against the medical bay wall, face bruised, body wrapped in support braces. Nalo looked at her through pain medication haze. "Your ship is rude." Amara nodded. "Yes, it tried to kill me. It does that less to people it respects." Concerning friendship model, she placed something beside his bed, a small metal patch bearing the faded emblem of Mercy of Dawn. "Human engineers wore those," she said. "Not officers. Engineers. People who kept ships alive when command made impossible promises." Nalo looked at the patch for a long time. Then he turned his face away and muttered, "I am too medicated for dignity." Amara left him with that mercy. In the command corps, Dr. Rook lived, but the severance had broken something no surgery could fully restore. Without the neural lattice, he was only an old man torn from a 50,000-year calculation. His hands shook, his memory skipped. Sometimes he spoke to people who were not there, but he could still think, and he had seen inside the Meridian while it used him. "It is weaker than before," he told them, seated beneath the damaged star map, "or less complete." Koresh's hologram sharpened. "Explain." The Meridian that attacked us during the war was vast, distributed across systems. This recurrence is a fragment, a surviving pattern, hungry, clever, but incomplete. Sareth said, "Then why is it so dangerous?" "Because fragments are desperate." Amara studied the map. It used the arks to rebuild itself. "Yes, but it made a mistake." Rillan leaned forward. "What mistake?" Rook's eyes found Sareth. "It included the witness." Sareth frowned. "It said that like victory." It was. Briefly. But the Meridian does not understand moral contradiction. It can use compassion as bait. It can mimic mercy as a door. But when Captain Vaughn chose mercy with conditions, rescue with quarantine, restraint with accountability, it copied a pattern that resists singular command. Amara's gaze sharpened. "It absorbed disagreement," Rook nodded. "And disagreement hurts it," Sentinel spoke. "Hypothesis. Meridian cognition optimizes toward coherence. Human and allied ethical divergence creates internal friction." Koresh looked unimpressed. "You intend to defeat an ancient cognitive weapon with argument?" Amara said, "Humans have done worse with less." Sareth folded her arms. "What does that mean operationally?" Rook activated the correction protocol again, now altered. "We do not send one command. We send a council." Koresh's eyes narrowed. "A debate? A living quorum," Rook said. "Human command." Cathari witness. Vayr enforcement. Concordat civilian law, if we can reach them. Every clean ark that wakes adds voice and weight. The Meridian wants old, centralized authority. We deny it. Sentinel said, "This will slow response time." Amara answered, "Good." The AI paused. Sareth almost enjoyed that. Koresh said, "Slowness in war kills. So does speed without judgment," Amara replied. The Admiral accepted the point with visible difficulty. The plan was absurd by military standards. Instead of awakening humanity as an army, they would awaken it as a conversation under attack. Clean arks would revive limited crews. Engineers, physicians, diplomats, historians, signal specialists, defensive officers, war systems would remain locked unless local quorum confirmed active Meridian assault. Uncertain arks would receive rescue teams, not execution orders. Infected arks would be surrounded, isolated, and spoken to by voices the Meridian could not reduce to one pattern. The Dominion would provide blockades. The Cathari would provide low-band communication. The human arks would provide technical authority, and every participant would sign their name to the choices made. No anonymous fire, no clean conscience purchased by distance. That mattered to Amara. Sareth saw it in the way the human looked at the map, as if each red point had a face. Mara Ellison remained asleep. Her pod was stable. The memory damage could not yet be measured. Amara visited her before the transmission. Sareth found her there. The human stood before the child's chamber, holding the small object Mara had preserved against her chest. Sentinel had removed it temporarily for stabilization. It was a worn cloth patch shaped like earth, blue and green, faded almost to gray. Her mother gave it to her? Sareth asked. Amara nodded. During evacuation, Mara kept asking why the sky was orange. Her mother told her Earth was wearing a blanket so the stars wouldn't see it cry. Sareth looked at the sleeping child. Did her mother survive? No. Amara's fingers closed around the patch. I carried Mara to the pod. I told her she would wake up when it was safe. And now I have to make that true. The answer was not heroic in the way songs preferred. It was tired, wounded, determined. Sareth thought that might be better. Together they returned to the command core. The transmission began on a frequency too crude to carry Meridian geometry and too stubborn to die easily. Cathari salvage bands, Dominion military relays stripped to basic pulses, human arc tight beams filtered through ancient moral locks. Sareth spoke first. This is Captain Sareth Vaughn of the Cathari vessel Vayra's Hand. To any human ark receiving this, your preservation network is under hostile mimicry. Do not accept legacy authentication alone. Require living witness. Require disagreement. Require names. Koresh spoke next. This is Admiral Koresh Vord of the Vayr Dominion. By emergency historical covenant, Dominion forces will not seize human arks under protection of this quorum. Any Dominion commander violating this order answers to me. Amara placed her hand on the human command plate. This is Lieutenant Amara Vale of human ark vessel Mercy of Dawn. If you are waking afraid, so are we. If you are waking angry, wait. If you are waking armed, lock your weapons until you know who you are aiming at. The Meridian wants us to return as our worst memory. We will not obey. Rook's voice followed, frail but clear. I am Elias Rook, architect of the Ark Network. I made locks from old human choices. That was not enough. Let the new age into the room. Sentinel transmitted the correction. For a moment, nothing answered. Then one star on the map turned blue. Arc lantern. Then another. Orchard, then bastion, homeward, small rain. Amara gripped the console. Small rain signal opened. A woman's voice. shaking and alive, crossed 50,000 years. This is Ark Small Rain. We hear you. We have children aboard. Please advise. Amara covered her mouth with one hand. Sareth answered because Amara could not. Small Rain, this is Captain Vaughn. Hold revival to essential crew. You are not alone. More lights turned blue. The Meridian pushed back. Red arcs screamed across the network with false human commands, dead voices, promises of reunion, accusations of cowardice. But now the network did not answer as one. It answered with many, and the Meridian began to fracture under the weight of people refusing to become a single fear. The first infected ark to move was Spear of Morning. It emerged from a comet shell near the Dominion border, engines burning white, hull scarred by ancient combat and fresh Meridian growth. Its crew had been partially revived, not fully controlled, not fully free. Human life signs flickered aboard like candles in a storm. Dominion doctrine demanded destruction. Koresh Vord ordered interception, not annihilation. His flagship and 2 cruisers formed a blockade line, while Cathari low-band transmitters repeated Amara's instructions through static. The spear accelerated toward slipstream velocity. If it escaped, it could carry Meridian infection into populated sectors. Koresh opened a channel. Spear of Morning. Reduce thrust. You are under quarantine protection. Reduce thrust and receive assistance. The Ark answered in the voice of a human commander. Dominion vessel. Stand aside. Human command priority overrides post-collapse species. Amara listened from Mercy of Dawn, pale with fury. That commander is dead. Sentinel, identify voice. General Mateo Ilun, deceased before preservation. Voice archived for training. Koresh said, it is using your dead officers as authority. Yes. Permission to disable engines? Amara's mouth tightened. Disable, not destroy. Koresh issued the order. Dominion lances fired with surgical precision, striking near the spear's engine field projectors. Human shields caught most of the blast. The Ark returned fire. The Dominion cruiser Luminous Rit lost its forward shield in one hit. Koresh's officers shouted damage reports. The Meridian voice spoke again. You hesitate because she told you to. She will burn you later. Koresh did not answer. A second human Ark, Bastion, arrived from awakening coordinates. Clean, partially crewed. Its commander was a woman named Jun Park, revived 12 minutes earlier, and already furious at everyone. This is Bastion Actual, she transmitted. Dominion ships, shift your blockade angle by 3 degrees. You are leaving a slipstream scar open. Koresh's tactical officer bristled. Admiral, accepting human tactical advice during combat. Do it, Koresh said. They shifted. The spear tried to run through the exact gap that no longer existed. June Park gave a grim laugh over the channel, still using old Meridian pathing tricks. The Bastion fired not weapons but anchors, gravity hooks that latched onto the spear's hull and dragged its nose off vector. Dominion cruisers reinforced. Cathari signal ships flooded the area with low-band human voices from clean arks. Not commands. Names. Crew manifests. Family identifiers. Medical histories. Songs. Arguments. The infected spear shook as its own waking crew heard proof of themselves beneath the Meridian's control. Amara transmitted directly. Spear of Morning crew. This is Lieutenant Vale. If you can hear me, do not fight the whole signal. Choose one thing, one memory it cannot use. Hold there. At first, nothing. Then a human voice broke through, ragged. My daughter hated carrots. Amara leaned toward the channel. Say again. My daughter hated carrots. She told the ship she was allergic. She was lying. I knew. I packed them anyway. The Meridian shrieked static. Another voice joined. My husband snored during orbital insertion. Another. I was afraid during the oath ceremony. Another. I voted against the final evacuation order. Contradictions, embarrassments, small truths too useless for propaganda and too personal for command mimicry. The Meridian lost grip. The Spear's engines dimmed. Koresh's blockade held. No world burned. No Ark destroyed. Across the network, the method spread. At infected Ark Redoubt, revived humans defeated Meridian control by reading children's jokes into tactical channels until the signal could no longer maintain command severity. At Ark Vigil, a doctor refused a false evacuation order because it used her wife's formal name, which no one who loved her ever used. At Ark Orchard, a community of farmers woke early, found Meridian code inside their guidance system, and isolated it by routing command through an analog irrigation planner designed by a stubborn man who distrusted smart machines. Nalo, recovering in medical, called that excellent engineering philosophy. The battle became unlike any war recorded in Dominion archives. There were weapons, yes, blockades, shield strikes, boarding drones, engine disablements, hard choices made under pressure, but the decisive victories came from specificity. The Meridian could imitate grief in general. It struggled with love in detail. Sareth watched human civilization re-enter history, not as a conquering fleet, but as thousands of confused, wounded, brilliant people, insisting on being particular. That did not make them harmless. Some arks woke angry. Some commanders demanded enemy lists. Some wanted to know who had inherited human worlds. Some cried for Earth. Some asked whether their children were alive before they asked about the war. And some, when told 50,000 years had passed, simply sat down and could not speak. HFY stories, Sareth thought, would someday remember the weapons. They might forget the harder miracle. Humans woke from the longest night any species had endured, found their enemy wearing their dead, found strangers standing over their beds, and enough of them still chose restraint for the galaxy to survive their return. That was not weakness. That was civilization clawing its way back through trauma. Then the Meridian changed tactics. It stopped trying to control arks. It aimed for Earth. The old human homeworld, lost behind collapsed routes and corrupted maps, reappeared on the Ark Network as a dark coordinate. Sentinel displayed it without comment. Amara stared. Rook began to shake. Koresh whispered, "Earth survived?" No one knew. The coordinate pulsed red, then blue, then black. A transmission arrived in ancient human emergency format. Only 3 words. "Come home alone." Amara's face went still. Sareth said, "It's bait." "Yes," Amara said, but her voice had changed. Every human in the command network saw the message. Every ark felt the pull. Earth, not as strategy, as wound, as mother, as grave, as promise. The Meridian had found the one command no human could receive neutrally. Come home, alone. No one agreed on whether to go to Earth. That, according to Dr. Rook, was a good sign. Arguments filled the network for 6 hours, while fleets repositioned and infected arks were stabilized. Human commanders wanted reconnaissance. Civilian Ark leaders demanded caution. Dominion strategists suspected a trap layered inside a trap. Cathari communicators worried that refusing the message might leave Earth undefended if survivors remained. Amara said little. Sareth noticed. The human lieutenant stood apart from the command table, staring at the coordinate. Medical braces kept her upright. Exhaustion hollowed her face. 50,000 years had taken everyone she knew, then returned the name of home as a weapon. Sareth joined her. "You want to go?" "Yes." "You know it is bait?" "Yes." "Those 2 truths are fighting." Amara looked at her. Kethari are annoyingly perceptive. We survive larger species by noticing when they are about to make dramatic mistakes. That earned a faint smile. Then Amara said, "When we loaded the arks, Earth was already compromised. Not fully. Enough that we could not trust global networks. The last thing I saw before launch was the Pacific Defense Grid firing into the ocean because something under the water was answering in human launch codes." Sareth waited. "My mother stayed behind at the Quito elevator. Civilian evacuation. Too many people. Not enough lift capacity." Amara's voice flattened. She gave her seat to a boy whose parents were already in orbit. "I am sorry. She told me not to make her sacrifice small by spending my life staring backward." Amara looked at the coordinate. "Then I went into cryo and did exactly that for 50,000 years." Sareth considered her words carefully. "Going to Earth because of guilt is not the same as going because of duty." "I know. Do you?" Amara's eyes flashed. "Do not gentle me." Sareth did not retreat. "Then do not confuse pain with orders." For a second, anger stood between them. Then Amara looked away. "I hate that you're right. Many people do. Nalo has formed a support group. The humor helped, because it did not solve anything. The final decision came from the living quorum. They would go to Earth. Not alone. Not with the full fleet. A small mixed expedition. Mercy of Dawn. One Dominion cruiser under Koresh's personal command. Sareth's Vayra's hand. And two newly awakened human support vessels. Lantern and Orchard. Clean arks would remain dispersed. War arks would stay locked, unless the Earth signal proved an active Meridian core. If the expedition failed, the network would not collapse. If Earth needed help, help would arrive with witnesses. The journey took 4 hours through routes no modern map remembered. Sentinel guided them along collapsed slipstream scars, through dark regions where old battles had twisted navigation. The closer they came to Sol, the more human debris appeared. Shattered defense platforms, frozen shipyards, grave fields of drones, memorial buoys still blinking after 50,000 years. Then Earth came into view. Blue, white, alive. Sareth had expected a tomb, a burned stone, a machine world. Anything but oceans shining beneath clouds. Amara made a sound that was almost a sob. No one spoke over it. The planet turned slowly beneath them, beautiful enough to hurt. But the beauty was wrong. No city lights glittered on the night side. No orbital traffic moved. No satellites answered. Continents showed green where megacities should have been. Deserts had shifted. Ice had retreated and returned in unfamiliar shapes. Earth had healed over humanity like skin over a wound. Rillan scanned from the Vayra's hand. Biosphere active. Complex life abundant. Minimal industrial signatures. Koresh said, "Meridian presence?" Sentinel answered, "Signal source beneath North Atlantic crust. Depth 40 kilometers. Rook, aboard Mercy, whispered, "It went under." Amara turned from the planet. "Can it reach the biosphere?" "Unknown," Sentinel said. The Earth signal transmitted again. This time it used Amara's mother's voice. "Come home, Mara." Not Amara, Mara. Sareth's feathers rose. It is calling the child. Amara's face hardened into something beyond anger. It used Earth to reach her. The Meridian had not lured the fleet for battle. It had lured memory. Mara Ellison's witness archive contained Earth evacuation command pathways. The damaged soft memory layer had denied the Meridian full access before, but Earth itself, saturated with old signals and buried infrastructure, could amplify the call. In Mara's pod aboard Mercy of Dawn, alarms triggered. The child began waking. Amara ran. Sareth followed. By the time they reached the cryo gallery, Mara's pod was half open. Medical drones hovered, confused by conflicting commands. The child inside coughed, gasped, and opened her eyes. She was 9 years old. She had slept through 50,000 years. She woke to alarms, aliens, and a soldier with tears on her face. Mara looked at Amara. "Did we win?" she asked. Amara knelt before her, not as commander, not as soldier, as someone who had carried a child into darkness and was still trying to keep a promise. "We're still trying," Amara said. The Meridian spoke through the ship speakers with Mara's mother's voice. "Baby, tell them to open the old doors." Mara turned toward the sound. Her small face changed. Hope first, then confusion, then pain. Amara whispered, "Mara, that isn't her." The child's lower lip trembled. "I know." Sareth stepped closer. "How?" Mara held the faded earth patch against her chest. "My mom never called me baby when she was scared," she said. "She called me captain." The Meridian signal faltered. A child's specific truth cut through a planet's worth of lies. Mara looked up at the ceiling, shaking but furious. "I'm not opening anything." The buried signal beneath Earth surged. The ship lurched. Sentinel announced, "Meridian Core initiating planetary transmission through ancient human infrastructure." Rook's voice came through the channel. "If it reaches the Ark Network from Earth, it will have enough historical density to mimic full human command." Koresh said, "Options?" Sentinel answered, "Orbital strike on source region." Amara stood. "No." Koresh's voice was grim. "Lieutenant, no. Earth may already be lost." Amara looked at the blue planet on the gallery display. "No more burning home because the enemy hid under it." Rook spoke softly. "Then we need someone to go down." Sareth understood before he finished. A team would have to descend into old Earth infrastructure beneath the Atlantic, reach the Meridian core, and plant a correction source close enough to overwrite the planetary transmission. Survival odds would be poor. Escape odds worse. Amara lifted Mara gently from the pod and handed her to a medical drone. "Prepare a descent craft," she said. Sareth stepped beside her. "Not alone." Amara looked at her. "You started this by touching the lock." Sareth nodded. "Then I should finish by opening the right door." They descended through storm clouds over an ocean no living human had seen from below in 50,000 years. The craft was human, piloted by Amara with Sentinel guidance, and Cathari stabilizers Nalo had designed from his medical bed, while threatening to haunt anyone who installed them incorrectly. Sareth sat beside her. Rillan came because the old infrastructure required a scientist. Koresh came because he refused to order others into a danger he would not face, and because Dominion armor could carry the correction charge. 4 species histories entered Earth's atmosphere together. Below them, the Atlantic rolled under moonlight. No cities, no ships, no radio chatter except their own. Amara's hands trembled on the controls. Sareth pretended not to notice. The entry point lay beneath a floating mass of vegetation and coral, grown over what had once been an oceanic defense platform. Human metal rose from the water like the ribs of a drowned giant. Automated systems recognized Mercy of Dawn's command codes and opened a shaft into darkness. The descent craft sank through layers of sealed pressure gates. At 40 kilometers below seafloor, they reached the old door. It was not large. That surprised Sareth. After arks and fleets and planetary signals, she expected a gate worthy of myth. Instead, it was a simple circular hatch marked with faded human text. Maintenance Access 7C. Beneath it, handwritten in permanent marker, someone had added, "If this opens, be kind anyway." Amara touched the words. "Humans wrote warnings to themselves?" Koresh asked. "All the time," she said. "Did it help?" "Sometimes." The hatch opened. Beyond lay a corridor where human architecture had fused with Meridian growth. Metal panels twisted into repeating geometric veins. Old lights flickered between warm white and impossible black. The air smelled of salt, rust, and ozone. The Meridian did not attack immediately. It spoke, not as a dead mother now, as earth. Wind through trees, waves against shore, crowds in cities, rain on roofs, languages layered across millennia. Sareth heard none of it as words, yet grief filled her helmet until breathing became difficult. Amara stumbled. Koresh caught her arm. She did not pull away. The Admiral said, "It is using your home." Amara's jaw clenched. "I know." They moved deeper. Rillan tracked signal density. Core chamber 200 meters ahead, but the transmission is adapting around us. Sareth saw shapes in the corridor walls, faces half-formed from memory archives, hands reaching from metal, scenes of evacuation playing without sound, human children boarding shuttles, soldiers guiding crowds, a woman giving her seat to a boy at the Quito elevator. Amara stopped. Her mother stood ahead. Not real, not even a body. A projection made from old cameras, archived records, and Amara's pain. "Amara," the false mother said. "You came home." Amara raised her weapon. Her hand shook. Sareth whispered, "Pain is not an order." Amara closed her eyes. When she opened them, she lowered the weapon. "My mother told me to look forward," she said. The projection smiled sadly. "Then why are you here?" "To stop you from using her voice." Amara walked through the image. It tore apart like smoke. Koresh watched her with something like respect that no treaty could manufacture. They reached the core chamber. The Meridian fragment lived inside an old human planetary command nexus. Not a creature, not a machine. A pattern embedded in infrastructure, wrapped around Earth's emergency systems like a parasite around a nerve. It pulsed with stolen human authentication, Ark memory, grief, guilt, songs, and last words. At its center stood a physical relay column. Koresh lifted the correction charge. "Placement point?" Rillan marked the base. "There. But once attached, it requires manual confirmation from inside the signal field." Sareth stared at him. "Manual?" Rillan's face tightened. "The Meridian will block remote activation." Koresh said, "I can do it." "No," Amara said. He turned. "My armor has the best shielding. It also carries Dominion command encryption. If it takes you, it gains modern military pathways." Sareth said, "I can do it." Amara shook her head. "It already learned from you once. It will try again." "Then who?" The answer arrived from the open channel. "Mara Ellison," said Dr. Rook. Amara went rigid. "Absolutely not." Rook's voice was weak but urgent. "Not physically. Through witness link. The Meridian wants her archive because she saw Earth's evacuation as a child. But she is awake now. She can choose differently from the memory. She is 9. "Yes," Rook said. "And the Meridian keeps failing when specific love contradicts its general grief." Amara's face darkened. "You want to put a child into that thing's reach?" "No. I want to let a witness testify." Sareth heard the horror in both positions. Mara's voice entered the channel, small but steady. "I want to help." Amara closed her eyes. "Mara, no. You said we're still trying. This isn't your burden." The child answered with a sentence no ancient intelligence could have forged. "You carried me when I was scared. Let me carry one thing back." Amara bent forward, as if struck. Sareth understood what the audience of history would remember 1 week later. Not the Ark, not the weapon. This. A child asking to return courage to the adult who had saved her. Amara looked at Sareth, pleading without words for another answer. Sareth had none. Mercy with conditions. Rescue with risk. Names attached. Amara placed the correction charge herself, then opened the witness channel to Mara, under Sentinel's strict isolation. The child's face appeared in Amara's visor display from the cryo gallery aboard Mercy of Dawn. She was wrapped in a medical blanket, earth patch in hand. The Meridian surged, voices screamed, Earth's old networks ignited. Mara flinched but did not disconnect. Amara knelt before the relay column. Mara, listen to me. It will show you things. I know. It will sound like people you love. I know. You don't have to be brave every second, just honest. Mara nodded. The Meridian spoke with her mother's voice. Captain Mara, open the door, Mara cried then. Not from confusion, from knowing. My mom is dead, she said. She loved me. Those are both true. The core shuddered. The Meridian shifted to evacuation footage, to fear, to orange skies, to adults shouting, to Amara carrying her through smoke. Mara kept speaking. I was scared. Amara was scared too. She lied and said the pod was like camping. I knew she was lying. I got in anyway because she was trying. Amara's shoulders shook. The correction charge armed. Sentinel said, Manual confirmation required. Amara reached toward the relay. The Meridian struck her mind through the field. Sareth saw her freeze. Not physically, historically. Amara was back at every burned world, every evacuation, every choice that had not saved enough. The Meridian offered her the old answer. Fire first, grief later. Call it duty. Koresh moved to pull her free. Sareth stopped him. No, she said. Captain, she has to choose. Inside the field, Amara heard Mara's voice. Amara? The human lieutenant opened her eyes. The Meridian whispered with 1,000 dead mouths. You will fail them again, Amara answered aloud. Then I will fail while trying something better. She pressed her hand to the relay. Mara Ellison, she said, voice breaking. Witness confirmation. Mara held up the faded earth patch. Witness says don't open doors for ghosts. Sareth placed her hand over Amara's. Cathari witness confirms. Koresh placed his armored hand over theirs. Vayr enforcement confirms. Rillan added his hand last, trembling. Concordat science record confirms. The correction charge activated. It did not explode. It argued. Every voice in the living quorum entered the Meridian core. Humans, Cathari, Vayr, awakened arks, civilians, soldiers, children, engineers, admirals, frightened doctors, angry farmers, people who disagreed and still chose to stand inside the same decision. The Meridian tried to make them one. They refused. It tried to make mercy into access. They made it accountability. It tried to make grief into obedience. They made it memory. Deep beneath Earth, the ancient fragment fractured. The core went dark. For the first time in 50,000 years, Earth stopped pretending to be a trap. When they returned to orbit, the Ark Network was singing. Not music exactly. Status reports, medical confirmations, engineering complaints, children crying, adults laughing, commanders arguing over quarantine law, farmers demanding soil surveys, historians requesting access to modern archives, soldiers asking who needed protection and who needed permission to stand down. Humanity did not wake cleanly. No species would have. Some arks mourned for days before making decisions. Some demanded to see Earth and collapsed when they saw green instead of cities. Some were relieved. Some were furious that nature had survived them. Some wanted to rebuild exactly what was lost. Others argued that a civilization given a second birth owed the universe a different shape. The important thing was that they argued. The Meridian fragment had not been destroyed everywhere. Infected pockets remained. Quarantines held. Rescue missions continued. Dominion ships stood guard beside human vessels they had once intended to seize. Cathari engineers became famous overnight for the apparently sacred ability to make ancient human systems speak politely to modern equipment. Nalo hated fame and accepted every interview. Dr. Rook lived long enough to see the first clean council convene. He sat in a chair overlooking Earth, old hands folded, neural lattice gone, face peaceful in a way it had not been while dreaming the network. Amara visited him. "You were wrong," she said. Rook smiled faintly. "Frequently. You will need to specify. Preservation was not enough." "No," he said. "It never is." "Why build it then?" "Because not enough is sometimes what keeps hope alive until better arrives." He looked past her to where Sareth stood near the viewport, speaking quietly with Koresh Vord. The Cathari captain and the Dominion admiral had become unwilling symbols of the new quorum. Both disliked symbolic roles. That made them ideal for them. Rook's voice softened. "We built arks because we were afraid humanity would end. We did not understand that survival alone was not the goal. Relationship was." Amara sat beside him. "I don't know how to live here," she admitted. "No one does. That is not comforting. It is honest." He took a slow breath. "Find Mara. Help her grow up in a universe that knows her name for something other than trauma. That will be harder than fighting the Meridian." Amara nodded. Rook died 3 hours later, while listening to a recording from Ark Orchard, children laughing at the taste of fruit grown from 50,000-year-old seeds. Captain Sol Navarro woke 2 days after the Earth correction, furious that everyone had made historic decisions without him, and wise enough to ratify most of them. He promoted Amara over her objections. Then he placed Mercy of Dawn under Provisional Council authority, not military command. Admiral Koresh Vord returned to Dominion space expecting court-martial. Instead, he found half the Dominion furious, half relieved, and all of it forced to confront the full memorial record of human evacuation efforts. His career did not end. It became more difficult, which he privately considered worse. Captain Sareth Vaughn filed no salvage claim. The Concordat tried to give her medals. She refused 3 and accepted 1 only after Nalo pointed out that metals could be melted into excellent replacement parts during emergencies. Mara Ellison became the first human child to stand on Earth in 50,000 years. Amara took her down at sunrise. They landed near what had once been the Quito elevator, now a mountain forest where birds nested in the ruins of launch anchors. No crowds waited, no ceremony. Just Sareth, Nalo in a medical brace, Rillan carrying too many scanners, Koresh standing at a respectful distance, and Amara holding Mara's hand. The child stepped onto soil. For a moment she only stared. Then she knelt and touched the ground. "Is this home?" she asked. Amara looked at the forest, the ruins, the sky no longer orange, the world that had survived without them, and waited without promising forgiveness. "I don't know," she said. Mara considered that. Then she pressed the faded earth patch into the dirt, not burying it, just letting it touch. "Can we make it home?" Amara's eyes filled. "Yes," she said, "but not alone." Above them, thousands of human arks continued waking across the dark. The galaxy watched with fear, hope, suspicion, and awe. It had expected ancient weapons. It found wounded people. It had expected conquest. It found councils. It had expected humanity to return as a memory of war. Instead, humanity returned with a child's testimony, an alien captain's mercy, an admiral's unfinished apology, an engineer's burned hands, and a soldier who had finally learned that home was not a place you came back to unchanged. 50,000 years earlier, humans had hidden themselves from extinction. Now they stepped out of the dark and faced the harder task, not winning the old war, not proving the legends true, building something worthy of all those who had slept, all those who had died, and all those strangers who had chosen not to be afraid enough to abandon them. Mara stood beneath Earth's morning sky and reached for Amara's hand. In orbit, the Ark Network received one final delayed transmission from a clean vault beyond the rim. It was simple, human, unarmed. We are awake. Who needs help?